For those that don't know me, my name is Matthew Rees. I'm an acting detective inspector with Cumbria Constabulary for Missing Persons. As we've discussed, I'm here this afternoon to discuss with you the Herbert Protocol and hopefully give you an insight as to how useful this protocol can be in terms of safeguarding vulnerable persons. So I'm just getting my screens right. So on the screen now you can see what we're going to be discussing today. And to introduce the Herbert Protocol, it's important to understand that certain people are more at risk of going missing than others. This may be due to the situation, for example, children or young people in care, someone with dementia, someone suffering from mental health issues, or members of the armed forces. We always recommend planning ahead in the event that a person does go missing. So in support of that, Cumbria Police have adopted the Herbert and Forcer protocols. The Forcer protocol will also touch on today, which support the immediate response to missing people who have dementia or have an armed forces background. So the purpose of this session today is to provide you with the knowledge required to initiate this process and in turn enhance the safeguarding of vulnerable persons. So as part of this session, we will discuss what the Herbert Protocol is, where to find the form, the registration process, how the information is utilised, and as I've mentioned, we'll also touch on the Forcer protocol. If you have any questions throughout, please add them to the chat bar. My colleague Tracy is online and will kindly be collating any questions, and any that remain unanswered at the end of the session we will discuss. So to start then, I'm going to introduce the short animation video which provides an interesting insight to the Herbert Protocol and what it stands for.
Once upon a time, there was an old man called Herbert who lived in a care home in Norfolk. A survivor of the Normandy Landings, he liked to have choice and control about what he did. And he loved to walk around the town. And like many others who go missing, he walked with purpose. So if you asked him, he knew exactly where he was going. To the pub, he'd say, or just out for a walk. Problem was that once he got there, he'd forget why he came, how to get home, and sometimes who he was. Once he forgot how to withdraw money from his bank account and tried to hold up the joint with a walking stick. Despite this failed robbery, everyone in town and the care home loved him and didn't want to see him cooped up. So they gathered together to create a Herbert cheat sheet and sent it to the places he liked to go most. It had his name, some background information, some relevant phone numbers. Just enough to get him back home with the minimum amount of fuss. The Herbert Protocol was so successful that it's now being used by families, loved ones, concerned neighbours, police, home carers and care homes all over the UK, helping thousands of people with dementia, brain injuries, learning disabilities or mental health issues, who walk with purpose like Herbert, not to walk into danger, and to see them home safely. For the latest advice from local police or more information about the Herbert Protocol, wearable tracking devices or any other solutions for people who walk away from home, you can use the QR codes or links on screen to find out more.
Great, so hopefully that video has given you an insight as to what the Herbert Protocol is and what it stands for. So what I'll do now is I'll break that down to give you some usable information and understanding as to how it can be used by yourselves. As mentioned in the video then, the Herbert Protocol is named after a male named George Hunt, a war veteran of the Normandy Landings who was living with dementia. George resided in Norfolk. He would often go missing from his care home, and Norfolk Constabulary developed the Herbert Protocol to help people living with dementia who've gone missing to get back to a place of safety as quickly as possible. Originally, the protocol focused on people in care homes, but in 2015, it was extended to include individuals living in their own home with dementia. The Herbert Protocol form, which is completed by family, friends, or carers of an individual suffering from dementia, acts as a preventative safeguarding measure, whereby in the circumstances that the individual goes missing, the information could be shared with the police quickly to assist in identifying key lines of inquiry in support of locating that individual and returning them to safety. So the next question I'm sure you've all got is, where can the form be found? So a company called Safe and Found Online hosts a digital platform on which you can register a profile. The account can be created by the vulnerable person themselves or friends, family and carers, and can be updated at any time. Users can sign up to the protocol at any time that they feel it's necessary, using your own professional opinion as a carer or your knowledge as a family member to decide whether a person is at risk of going missing. You might decide, for example, that it's time to fill in the form and someone cannot remember their address themselves. However, it will never be too early. Please ensure you seek permission from the person at risk or their relatives before you complete the form, or if that isn't possible, a care home can fill in the form if they think it's necessary and in the person's best interests. The form consists of key information regarding the individual, such as the description, personal information, locations of interest, previous addresses, daily routines, medication requirements and more, which are extremely useful in locating the individual should they be reported missing. So to register then, it's free and it's via the Safe and Found Online website. There's a link on the screen there, and I believe you will be shared this slide deck afterwards. So any links, or if you want a refresher of the video, then that can be done thereafter. What's useful though is, as well as the information, images can be uploaded. It operates very much like a social media site, and the details of the account can be updated at any time. So should any situations or information, addresses, key locations, or if, for example, somebody starts to go to the same location on multiple occasions, that information can be edited and uploaded. It's a working document in essence. So the information updated is confidential and it's only available to police in the case where that person's reported missing. Safe and Found Online is an online system, so therefore it does require access to a phone or laptop to generate an account. So therefore, those without IT access might require some support from involved professionals or family members, or may choose to use facilities within the local library, for example. It's important to understand then that using this online option ensures, as I've mentioned, with the opportunities to update, etc., that information is accurate and readily available to the police at the earliest opportunity. So on making a report of a missing person to the police then, the control room operators within the police will ask a series of questions to correctly assess any risks. The caller will be asked, as a matter of course, if the person's reported missing suffers with dementia. Where this is the case, the police will search the Safe and Found database to access any stored information. However, if, for example, the person who is making the call to police doesn't know whether the Herbert Protocol is in place, a precautionary search of the system will be undertaken to allow for us to establish whether or not there is any information stored. Should there be any information held, it will be utilised direct resources and identify key lines of inquiry in support of locating that person safe and well as soon as possible. So with that in mind, it's vital to ensure that once the profile has been created, the form has been submitted, that it is kept up to date. As circumstances change, the form should be updated also. Similarly, there's also the FORSA protocol, which operates using the same principles. Now, the FORSA protocol relates to a male named Alan Forser, who was a serving soldier who completed tours of both Northern Ireland and Kosovo. On leaving the military, he suffered with complex PTSD, extreme anxiety, pain, and depression. He went missing in 2020. He was missing for approximately 5 days before sadly being found deceased through hanging. Since then, Alan's wife has been campaigning for a better understanding by the police service of the specific risks that veterans face when in crisis, and this has ultimately led to the FORSA protocol. The FORSA protocol is also supported by Safe and Found Online, operates in exactly the same way. The account creation, information gathering follows the same process, with the police utilising this information when receiving a report of a missing person. The video obviously provides in-depth understanding as to why the protocols come about, and hopefully the information that I've given you today gives you a bit more of an understanding as to how this process can be initiated. So a final plea from me would be to please ensure that where an individual suffers from dementia or as a service veteran struggling with the mental health, the form is completed at the earliest opportunity. Hopefully the form would never have to be used, but if it is, it's there and it does and it allows us to effectively safeguard vulnerable people. For more information and links to the relevant sites, you can visit the Cumbria Police website and you can search vulnerable people at risk of going missing, and all the relevant links will pop up from that link. And additionally, as I've mentioned, the slide pack will be circulated after this session.